Hey guys, Judy Hudson here. I am a National Certified Master Groomer, and I've been in this industry for, I hate to say, 35 some years now. And I love it today as much as I did when I started. Um, these types of programs were not available when I first started. Nobody ever talked about personal development or taking care of yourself or any of those things. That's my other seminar that I love to do is taking care of you, the groomer, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we have nothing left to give to anybody else. And I used to think that was a selfish thing. But one of the things that, you know, started this whole me putting this program together was that learning to say no to people and setting boundaries was very healthy. And so we're going to jump right in. We're going to discuss reasons why it's so hard to say no and discover ways to say yes and ways to say no without actually saying the word and more fun stuff. So let's jump right in. It's the most powerful word in the world, and it will change your world if you just let it. And it's so empowering, and it can take courage to use it, but when used to our advantage, saying no allows us to say yes to things we really want to do. Time is our most precious commodity. We all have the same amount of time in the day. I used to, people that I would coach for grooming competitions, they would call me and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I only have an hour and 45 minutes to groom a poodle." And I'm like, "So does everybody else. You're on the same page. It's okay." You know, but that time, let's don't waste it doing things that we don't want to do. All right. And a lot of times it's right on the tip of our tongue to say no. And then we'll get pressured or manipulated into saying yes. So we're going to learn to use it wisely. And when you first start telling people no, they're not going to want to believe it. They're going to buck the system. They're going to be like, what do you mean you don't want to go? And we believe that it's hard, so we just don't do it. We just go along with the crowd. And then we're angry and frustrated and stressed out because we're roped into doing something that we didn't want to do. But we say yes to avoid feeling guilty, selfish, or uncaring. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And no is a complete sentence. You don't have to give anybody a excuse. You don't have to tell them why you're saying no. No matter what the reason is. And no, it's learning to say no hasn't been easy, but it's given me more time and in a lot of cases, more money to do the things that I really wanted to do. The most boundary setting word that we have is no. It lets others know that we exist apart from them. Yeah, I'm going to say that again. It lets others know that we exist apart from them. Okay. I realized that I existed as a wife and a mother and a groomer, but I lost my identity as a person, as who I was. So when I started saying no, it gave me that back. Y'all might think that's a lot of hoo-ha, but it's a real thing. I literally was raising a family of 4 on dog hair. And I started in a 75 Ford motorhome. And I took my kids to work with me every day. So yeah, it's easy to do, and it can happen before you know it. So why is it so hard to say no? We could all benefit from saying no more often, but figuring out how to say it without hurting people's feelings is something that we struggle with. Whether it's with a grooming client or an employee, a family member. I hear people all the time say that they're going to do this or that, but they really don't want to. And I say, why don't you just tell them no? And when we were kids, we grew up, and on weekends, everybody went to Granny and Pa's for Sunday lunch. Okay. Or if it was Easter or somebody's birthday or whatever the holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, we were all expected to be at my grandparents' house. And one day my brother came in and he announced to the powers that be that he wasn't going to be there on Easter Sunday because it was going to be 75 degrees and he was going to be on his boat on the lake. And I remember thinking, oh, we can do that? Like we can tell our parents, no, we're not coming to Sunday dinner? And that was really eye-opening to me. Okay. I'm pretty much a rule follower, and
Our brothers went above and beyond and settled my case for $250,000.
Hello.
30,000. And so that was like a pivotal moment in my life growing up that, you know, we could say no. And one of the things that's been important raising my children is teaching them to say no respectfully. My daughter was a setter for a volleyball team in college. And so she started in middle school. But what happens is the setter is like the team communicator with the referee. The referee is not allowed to speak to the coach directly. So she learned early on that and she did not like confrontation at all. So this was so good for her. But I told them always, it's okay to question authority as long as you do it with respect. Okay. The other thing, now I'm still a work in progress, just like everybody else. But my son is 34. And a few years back, he needed a car. I went with him, loaned him some money that he did not pay back as timely as he should have. And so the car ended up being kind of a lemon, cost us a bunch of money, blah, blah, blah. So this time, a few months ago, he went to buy a new car and he asked me if I would co-sign for him. And I said, no. And he said, I totally understand. And can I tell you that it has been the biggest change in his life when I stopped enabling him? He got his own loan without my help. He learned how to refinance that car after several months of making the payments on time. So he got his interest rate reduced. He decided to go back to college. His decision, not anybody else's, not because he could play basketball, but because he needed to get his education to be able to get a raise at his job that he loves. So sometimes saying no to somebody can change their life, you know, just like it did him. I thought I was helping him out, but I was wrong. Okay. So don't be afraid to say no. I mean, we see it all the time, right? Remember that there used to be a song called Signs, and it was everywhere a sign, you know, talking about all these things: no pets, no smoking, no alcohol, no long hair, no bare feet if you went into a store, things like that. It can be one of the most difficult words to say, and you may even feel pressure to say yes because you don't want to disappoint somebody or you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. And the truth is, we can't control somebody else's feelings. If they get their feelings hurt, that's on them. Okay. We have to protect ourselves, and we have to set boundaries to protect ourselves. If you want to have control of your life, so you can allocate your time to what matters the most to you. Saying no helps you to focus on your life and set your priorities. If you desperately want to stop replaying conversations in your head and then picking apart what you should have said instead of having that rehearsed, and stop keeping quiet and try to make everyone around you happy. You know, if people are going to get bent out of shape because you don't want to go along with them, then that's on them. And that's a hard thing to learn, that we have to we have to protect ourselves. Okay. And it teaches people how they're going to be allowed to treat us. Rejection. We're so afraid people are going to reject us. We're afraid that customer's going to go down the road to some other shop. It doesn't mean that you're selfish or inconsiderate. It only means that you're strong enough to set your priorities and value yourself. And I know if some of you are my age and we were not raised to think that way. You know, we were raised to make everybody happy. When you got married, you stayed married no matter what it took. You know, a lot of things like that. And it's the way we were raised, and it's not our parents' fault. They just did what they knew. They did what they knew, how they were raised, and they thought that was right. Right. I'll never forget one time my dad told me, because I was complaining about something that my husband at the time had done. And he said, well, Judy Ann, just because that's the way I did it didn't make it right. And I was like, what? Like, I thought my daddy did no wrong, you know? But sometimes we have to realize that they were just teaching what they were taught. That didn't necessarily make it right or wrong, right? So as we raise our children up, that's the other thing. And the way we communicate also with our employees and our clients, letting them know how we're going to be treated. Okay. And that we can and we will set boundaries. It lets people know that you own you. You own your schedule and you respect yourself enough to set healthy boundaries. But, you know, a lot of us are people pleasers. That's why we groom dogs, because people come and get their dogs and they're like, oh my God, they look amazing. Nobody's ever made them look this good. We're people pleasers. We love that. I love that. When somebody comes back and they're like, oh, I ran into so-and-so in the park the other day and I knew immediately that you groomed their dogs. Makes me feel good. Okay. I love that. And we don't want to let them down. But a lot of times we're also afraid of confrontation. You know, that's the other big one, confrontation. And again, confrontation is fine as long as it's respectfully done. Again, we're afraid of loss of business. You know, my business was my life. I mean, it was my grooming. My van was my sanctuary. It was where I was in control. It was I was married to a man that everything revolved around money. I couldn't do this because we didn't have money. He wasn't happy about this because we didn't have enough money. So I was on this hamster wheel running, because I was like, well, I can always groom more dogs. I can make more money. And, but it wasn't enough. But you reserve the right to withhold services from anyone. I hear so many stories of owners treating people, groomers, badly. It breaks my heart, you know. No one should be treated badly because we refuse to groom their dog, or we just don't physically have the capabilities to take on one more dog. You're in charge of you. And if they have an issue with your policies, then that's on them and they can leave. And you're like, well, I need the money. You don't need the money that bad. Okay. People that are disrespectful and have no respect for people in business. And I see this a lot in, excuse me, mobile businesses, because they think, oh, this cute little girl, she's out there grooming dogs and she's so cute and she's got her little business, and they don't see it as a business. And I'll be the first to admit that I've been guilty of not treating my business like a business. I fell a couple of years ago and had to have 2 shoulder surgeries, and a buddy of mine took over some of my clientele, and he called me up and he goes, hey, you're not charging enough for these doodles. And I was like, well, do tell, because I'm always about making more money. And he sent me a price list of what their mobile was charging, and I was way underpriced. And so it's sometimes you have to be stand your ground and then take advice from others and be open-minded. Because I hear people say all the time, like, oh, I don't need to charge that much. My expenses aren't that much. And I think, That's not necessarily true. I'm afraid that people that say stuff like that, they're not pulling all the information together to know what their expenses really are. Okay. They forget about insurance and for like car insurance and health insurance and insurance on their place of business and their business license. I mean, I never realized how much of that stuff needed to be put into the mix until I hired an accountant. And it seems like every other day there's a thing coming through that says, oh, you have a tax payment for this or an unemployment thing for that. And it's just, it adds up. And so we need to be aware of where all that money's going to. You know, and I get it. When you're broke as a joke, you might have to go and service people's dogs that you don't, you know, they're on your short list, I call them. So when you get on your feet, you don't have to worry about doing those people's dogs again. One time I was working, I was just starting out. I wasn't a great groomer at the time, in my opinion, but the little shop across the street, they needed somebody to work on a Saturday. So I told her, yeah, I could work, but I did 80%. And she was like, what? Nobody gets 80%. And I'm like, here's the deal. I don't really want to work on Saturday. If you don't have anybody in your shop on Saturday, chances are those people are going to go somewhere else and they may never darken your door again. But if I'm here and I groom those dogs and you make 20%, those people are going to come back because they like that service. They like being able to get their dog groomed on Saturday. Okay. Or I can go home and spend that time with my family and you make nothing. It's up to you. And so a lot of times when we can just put it on to them and let them make the decision, then, you know, that's always easier too. Fear, the fear of missing out, fear of hurting someone's feelings, fear of feeling bad because we disappointed someone. Women are more inclined to worry about this kind of stuff than men are. I feel like we tend to live our lives like that, worrying about others. We worry about our children. We worry about our spouses. We worry about, you know, the neighbors. You know, did we, you know, what if they wanted us to take care of their dog while they were on vacation and we had to say no? Things like that. I personally, I will board dogs at my house, but I'm not house sitting for anybody. I'm not going to somebody else's house. No, I don't want to do that at all. So that's a hard no for me. We're more likely trained coming up to say yes. I mean, how often did you ever say no to your parents, right? We're trained to say, yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I'll do that. You know, even when you got your driver's license and mom would say, hey, can you know, stop at the store and get milk? Yes. I mean, you know, can you mow the yard? Yes. Can you take the trash out? Yes. Okay. So we're kind of groomed to say that. But then as we get older and we learn to put our priorities in order, then we can decide what we say yes to and what we say no to. You are teaching people how to treat you. Okay, I took this picture for my friend Jody Murphy wrote a book on mobile grooming. And I sent her this picture and she goes, if that was me, that would be the cover of this book. But what it says to me, what does it say to you? I mean, you look at that and it says she's in charge of her business. Okay, she's not going to be run over. And my license plate says it all. If you can't run with the big dog, stay on the porch. But this is kind of my attitude in everything I do. Like even from the time that I answer the phone, Judy Hudson. That tells them immediately that I'm in business. I am here to talk business. My biggest complaint in this industry is having people want to talk to me about their dogs, and they want to tie up my time telling me what, you know, their bathroom habits or whether they ate that morning, or, oh, he hasn't eaten yet this morning. Could you wait? And no, he can eat when I'm done. Like, you know, it's it's hard. And like, my girl that's working for me, she went to a new customer the other day and she said, you would not have liked that. And I said, wow, what happened? She said, oh, she wanted me to come in and sit on the couch and let the dog get to know me. And she said, and of course, when I left, as soon as they shut the door, she trotted right out onto the truck and was perfectly fine. And I would have probably said, I don't have time for that, but I'll tell you what, let's put her on a leash. You set her out the front door with me. You shut the door and watch out the window. And if she doesn't walk with me to the truck without setting back, I'll refund your service charge. That's how confident I am that your dog will go with me, because she's going to do that, because that's my demeanor. I'm going to expect that from her. And so she's going to go right with me. And so anyway, people know within minutes of meeting me that I'm real no nonsense. I don't sugarcoat stuff. And I tell people right off, I am a dog person. I'm not a pet person. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And then I say, well, my dogs don't eat off my table and they don't sleep in my bed. I love my dogs. I sit on the floor with my dog in the morning and have coffee, and I'm crazy about him, but he is a dog. And that's just the way I was raised. And doesn't make me love him any less. But if you want somebody that's going to come and make over your dog for 20 minutes, I'm not your groomer. It's just not going to happen. Another thing, Angela Cumpy told me the story about she had trained people to treat her badly. And so she was in a shop and people would continuously come and call ahead and say, oh, is he ready yet? Is he ready yet? After she had told them when they dropped off, I'll call you when they're ready. So then she ended up implementing a service fee. Every time that you call, before I call you, the price goes up $10. But when she went out and she was mobile, she started out totally different, because she was confident then in her capability. She was confident in what she was willing to do and not willing to do. She was confident in setting her boundaries. But she said, you know what? The truth of the matter was, I had taught them how to treat me. And so we can't be upset with people that we've taught them how to treat us. And I'm guilty of the same thing. You know, you think, oh, it doesn't matter this time, that kind of stuff. And so she also, you know, and I don't do this and I should do this, but like I have customers that are NFL football players and they go out of town for 6 months out of the year, but I don't charge them for those spots. But if you have a kid in daycare and you go out of town for 6 months, they're for sure going to charge you to hold your spot for 6 months. We're a business. We're professionals. We have bills to pay and we have a life to live. Okay. So don't discount your worthiness. Is fear of how someone will react determining my decisions. Again, you're not responsible for other people's decisions. You're not responsible for their reactions or their feelings. Okay. This is kind of hard to wrap your head around, but because you're thinking, but because I said no, she got her feelings hurt. Well, again, she got her feelings hurt, got her feelings hurt. She could have just as easily thought, well, darn, I should probably book ahead for the next time. And I'll use that language a lot of times when I am talking to people, because I book out a year in advance. I put everybody is on a regular schedule at least every 6 weeks. So the language that I use when I tell them that, well, that's kind of in my script when I first talk to them, is how often do you get your dog groomed? And if they say every 3 months, I'm like, well, I can't help you. But if they're every 3 weeks, then they go on the schedule every 3 weeks. And if they want to dig their feet in about it, I'm like, well, I book out a year in advance. And if you're not on a regular schedule, then I can't guarantee you that you'll have an appointment when you want it. And by keeping the dogs on a regular schedule, it makes it a pleasant experience for them. And more importantly for me, because grooming is hard on our bodies, and dematting dogs that aren't used to being groomed, fighting with dogs that aren't used to being groomed, especially the big dogs. It's detrimental to our health and our equipment and our well-being. So take care of you. So for instance, with my doodle people, you know, they always want them fluffy. And I tell them up front, it's in my experience, the way to keep your dog fluffy the way you'd like it. The first thing I do is I ask them how often they get them groomed. How much are you willing to brush at home? Now, let's be honest, because I got to be honest. I have a Rottweiler for a reason. I don't like to brush my dogs at home. And they're like, well, you know, not much. And so, okay, so my doodle clients that I have are that want their dogs fluffy, they get a bath every 2 weeks. And that keeps them clean. It keeps them from matting. It keeps them used to being groomed. So it's not a big deal for them or for me. Okay, so I can make them long and fluffy, but this is the schedule that I recommend, that 1 week they get just a bath, the next week they get a haircut. And I have a dog right now, he's a sheepadoodle, and he literally looks like a sheepdog with a long tail. And his hair's that long. Where's my hand? You know, it's probably 6 inches long right now. And so we just let him grow because he's bathed every 2 weeks, so he doesn't get matted. And it's not a big deal. It takes less time to go and just bathe him and dry him and brush him out than it would to give him a full haircut. So sometimes you tell them no so that you can give them a yes. No, but turning that no into a yes. I just talked about the doodle owners, and you know, and I tell the people, you know, I'm so sorry, but you've been lied to, because there's no way that you can breed a shedding dog with a non-shedding dog and expect them not to shed. Okay. I actually lost a customer that he wanted to argue with me and tell me that he bought one and he did all this research and it wasn't going to shed. And I was like, good luck with that. But we have to educate them as pet care professionals about the maintenance that is required and the grooming that's required of these dogs. And keep in mind, most of these people paid a big chunk of money for these dogs, so they can afford to get them groomed. Okay. You know, if you go to a hairstylist and you ask them for a haircut that is not going to work with your hair or your texture or look good on your face, then you expect for them to tell you that and to keep you from spending money on something that's, you know, you're not going to be happy with. And then they're going to suggest a better option for us. And that's our job. The other thing is the lifestyle of the dogs. Do they take them swimming? Do they go hiking with them? Do they get in your pool? A lot of them get in the pool. They end up being really short. Okay, I went through all that. I don't want her shaved. Okay, how many times have we heard that? And they came in like this. This is actually a little dog that I did for Learn to Groom Dogs years ago. And I just tell people, I'm like, look, I don't want to shave your dog either, but because bald dogs don't get groomed very often, right? If you shave this dog down with a 10 blade or a 7 blade or a 5, they're going to think, oh, well, I don't have to go back for forever now. And but if I can educate this customer and get her on a regular schedule, then it's a win-win for everybody. Okay, because I don't think this dog enjoys being in this condition. And the other thing when you're dealing with clients, because I can demat pretty much anything, but I give them the option. I can shave him down and we can start over and get him on a regular schedule, or I charge $1 a minute to demat. and I'm going to take my time because it's very painful, and it can be painful. It can be not as painful, but I'm going to take my time for his sake and for mine. Okay. And actually, this is what she turned out to be. Because so sometimes it's worth it. I took my time. I dematted her in the tub while she was soapy. But you need to know what your skill level is and what your time constraints are, and determine when to say yes and when to say no. This was just after her demat and a bath. And then this is the way I feel when I do something like that. You know, I feel like, yeah, I can do that. So was it? Yeah, it was worth saying yes to, you know. I know a lot of groomers that are just, any dog comes in, he's got any kind of a tangle at all. They just shave them down, completely down. I've got a customer now that came to me because his poodle, which is always in excellent condition, he runs with him, he bathes him, he has his own canine 2 dryer. I mean, the dog never has a mat in him. And apparently they found a mat in him and they shaved him down, and he was mortified. And, if you don't know how to put a correct trim on something, you need to be honest and upfront with the people. And, and I've even told people, I've never done this groom before, but I have my notes from the grooming table. So I have a recipe book. I call it my recipe book. And, maybe don't charge them full price if you're just learning something, so that you can educate yourself and learn. I'm totally self-taught. I started out the groomer at the vet clinic that I worked for, walked out one day, and I literally picked up a pair of shears and started grooming dogs. It was crazy. And then I found out there were grooming competitions, and I was like, oh, I am so hooked. I am so doing this. But you got to know that there's a trade-off. Okay. When you say yes to something like that, it's going to take time. It's going to take physical effort and exertion on your body to do that. Is that dog going to tolerate being pulled on and being on the table for that long? And being clear with your priorities. Because without that clarity, it's easy to fall into the trap of saying yes to everything and telling ourselves we can get it all done. I had given it my best shot. Like I said, I raised a family of 4 on dog hair, and about 55, I had adrenal fatigue, which is an autoimmune issue. Another reason that I started delving in on how to take care of myself. But stress is very detrimental to your health. And by setting boundaries and saying no to some of these things are going to be so beneficial to you in the long run, for your health and for your family and for your peace of mind. So take ownership of your choices. Another reason you might want to say no. Ask yourself, is it worth it? I used to pride myself in grooming dogs that nobody else could groom. I kind of just have a natural knack with animals. I had horses before, and, could handle horses that some other people couldn't. I've groomed a lot of dogs that other groomers couldn't groom. But, and then I realized that like most of these dogs were like once a year clients, so it's not their fault that they're not trained, that they haven't been socialized and groomed on a regular basis. So any money that I made on these dogs, it went out the window. All right. And not to mention the fact, if he hurts himself, it's going to be my fault. If he hurts me, I'm going to be out of a job. And if he tears up my equipment, then I'm going to be losing money. So think about, is it worth it to say yes when you really should say no? Because you're afraid that they might go somewhere else, or they might say something bad about you, or whatever. I hate reviews of people that have keyboard courage, and because they brought their dog in bad condition, and they weren't happy with the outcome. even though they were told up front what was going to happen and explained to them the process and all the things. And then they go online and make their bad reviews just to hurt somebody's business, when in reality it was because they weren't great dog owners. I have a customer that I love them dearly, sweetest people in the world, but they rescue these dogs and then they don't let them. They live on 300 acres. They have a big farm, and the dogs are never allowed to go outside and just run and be dogs. And they're obese, and like I'm talking morbidly obese. And I think to myself, these dogs are better off out running loose on the streets, because they were getting exercise and they were getting fresh air, and their hips didn't hurt and their bodies didn't hurt because they weren't carrying 30 pounds of extra weight. So, you know, and that's the other thing. These dogs that are, for me, if they're dogs that are really heavy like that, they would probably benefit more from going to a shop setting than for me trying to do them in a mobile. So knowing your limitations and knowing what's the best thing for you, what's the best thing for your dog, for this customer's dog, because as pet care professionals, it is our job to protect them. Okay. And if you have customers that are not willing to learn, those might be people that you want to let go. The other thing, this is one of my favorite things, is to not answer right away. Because sometimes it's a knee-jerk reaction. You're like, I'll do that. And then you're like, what in the world was I thinking? So don't say yes right away. It's that I had a customer called, no, I'm not taking new clients, blah, blah, blah. Talked to the guy for 30 minutes. He was from Kentucky. He was a basketball fan, loved him. Sure, I'll groom your dog. And I got off the phone and I was like, what in the world did you just do? You have no place to put this next dog. And he ended up being an amazing customer. Moses was the dog's name, and I loved him. And he was every 2 weeks. So he was a great client, but I didn't really mean to say yes to him. I meant to say no. But if I'd have said, let me get back to you, instead of giving him a yes or no, I might have made a better decision. It gives you time to check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I have to say, I have to practice in my mirror in the mornings when I am, I had a customer, her name was Joyce Vice, and she had a dog named Sugar. And she was every 2 weeks on a Thursday. And if I wasn't there at exactly 9 o'clock, which was hard to do because she didn't want to be at 8 o'clock or 7:30, which is my first appointment. So it would give or take a little bit. And she knew that. We had talked about that I'd be. And so finally, I would just quit responding to her text. Are you coming? Are you going to be here? What? I'm like, yes, I'm coming. It's Thursday. I come every other Thursday. I will be there. I'll respond to her once. And then that was it. So, but I had to practice in my mirror or on the drive to her house. No, Joyce, I'm not going to come back because you think one toenail is a 16th of an inch longer than another one. No, Joyce, I'm not going to come back and cut that imaginary hair that you see under her chin. Because I did it a couple of times and I was like, she's crazy. Like, there's nothing here. It was just her wanting attention and being able to manipulate me. Okay. Then, I'd gone up to Melissa Verplank's to ride, and my flight got canceled. Coming back that morning, I was going to fly back, go straight to work, and the girl that worked for me was going to pick me up at the airport, and my flight got canceled. And I texted her and I said, hey, I'm out of town. My flight's been canceled, but April can come groom Sugar today. No. And I said, well, this is out of my control. I don't have anywhere else I can put her. Maybe it would be best if you found someone else to groom Sugar. And I really hated to let the little dog go because she was, it was a 7 on her body with a Bichon head. I mean, 45 minutes in and out, easy peasy. But after that, I realized on Wednesday nights that I wasn't stressing out because I had to go to her on Thursday mornings. Did I tell you already that stress is bad for your health? It was such an eye-opening experience to me that this person that, yes, I was making money off of, but just that constant on your guard so that you didn't get sucked in and taken advantage of was putting such a stress on me. Okay, so don't say yes right away. So let me get back to you. Not now is another way to say that. And maybe it's later, but maybe not. But it gives you time to think about it. Again, with Joyce, letting her wanting to manipulate me. Time is money. Are you making it or are you losing it? That's the question. Saying no to people that tie up your time by being difficult and are never happy. If you've exhausted all the tools in your toolbox, cut them loose. And just, be just upfront and honest. Say, Miss Smith, it seems you're never happy with the trim I put on Fluffy. I try my best, but I feel like I'm not giving you the results that you want. I feel it would be better if you tried another salon. I spoke with Tiffany at Fluffy Paws, and she does more of this type of trims, and she has an opening. Would you like her number? This is definitely a conversation that you want to practice or you want to role play with someone. Okay. There's, and do check with Tiffany. Don't just send her down the road somewhere. Also, I like to keep numbers of the veterinarians that I recommend, the trainers that I recommend, because if some people just don't know, they just don't have any idea what needs to be done, what is what is an acceptable parameters for what you're doing. And so that's why when you first go to a customer's house, you need to let them know, just like I let them know, I'm not a pet person, I'm a dog person. It just sets the stage for expectations. What are your expectations? And I tell them too, I feel like as a mobile groomer that if your day is not interrupted by me doing my job, so you leave me a key, you go do your thing, you come home, your dog looks amazing, and you go, oh, the groomer was here. That's right, it's Tuesday. I need to send her a Venmo. And she'll check her Venmo and she says, there's a request from Judy Hudson and da-da-da. So that lets them know that, because so many people think that they have to be home for me to come and groom their dogs. And in actuality, it's way better for me and for the dogs because they're not thinking mom's going to save them from getting groomed. And I don't get tied up talking to somebody because I like to talk, if you didn't know that by now. So practice saying no. It does really help. It may sound corny to practice it, but it works. What's important to you? You don't have to offer an explanation. Like I said before, you say no and shut up. I used to have, when I first started taking Fridays off, and I was just working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and people would say, I can't do Thursday. Can we do Friday? And I'm like, no. And I just shut up. I don't say I'm booked that day. I don't say I'm going to lay in my pool with a good book. It's none of their business. The question was, can we move him to Friday? And the answer was no. Okay. So just think about that. And I'll guarantee you that for every time you say no, they can make their Thursday appointment. But it's a whole lot easier if you can rearrange your schedule for them. And I did that for a lot of years because I was so afraid that somebody was not going to stay with me or that they were going to go somewhere else. And let me tell you something. We have relationships with people, and I have some great customers. But let me tell you that when I fell and I was going to have to be out for over a year, like a year and a half for 2 surgeries, people that I thought would never leave me left before I was even finished grooming. I had one customer that sent me a check every 3 weeks, like clockwork, just like I was still grooming every day. One. And I have a lot of great customers. So don't take it personal, but just remember that you might not be as important to them as you think you are. Okay? Hard lesson to learn, let me just tell you. More money, less stress, y'all. This is, I'm all about this. I went down to working 3 days a week and making the same amount of money, making 6 figures a year. This year, we did way better than that. Because I created a system to get every dog groomed efficiently. When I started work at the vet clinic and people would complain, why do I have to leave my dog all day if it only takes you an hour, hour and a half to groom my dog? And when I was raised, we were taught that you do the job, you do it right. You do it right the first time because you certainly don't have time to go back and do it again. So I thought, well, I can solve this problem. And so I started getting more efficient in how I did things. And so I started having a system. I did the same thing, the same way on every dog. I started learning to do my little Shih Tzus and Schnauzers, and I got them down to like 45 minutes a dog, bath, dry, the whole 9 yards. Now I can do a standard poodle that's groomed on a pretty regular basis. I think this guy's done every 4 weeks. I can do him in 90 minutes. That's bath, dry, ears, clipper work. The body's a blue comb. The legs are a 3/4, and in and out the door. And but I wanted to be a people pleaser. So sometimes being a people pleaser is all right, right? So that taught me to be very efficient in how I groomed. Not fast, just efficient. So sometimes it's a good thing. When people get upset because you can't groom their dog, they're like, what, you're booked a year in advance? Like, why don't you just hire another groomer? And I'm like, because not everybody grooms like me. And know too that some people are going to love you because you're you. And some people are not going to like you because you're you. And I had a client once tell me this. She said, I was at her house and I had a customer that didn't want the girl that was working for me to come to groom her dog. And I said, I just don't understand. Like, it's just a bath. And she said, can I tell you something as a customer and as a friend? And I said, absolutely. And she said, they're not you. Some people they're going to like my grooming better than somebody that works for me just because they're not me. Not because the groom's necessarily any better or any worse. They just liked me. Okay. Some of these people are very loyal. They've been with me for 35, 40 years. And they like me. They like dealing with me. Okay. When I fell, then they had to start letting the other girls groom their dogs. And now people are, since I'm back capable of grooming, they're like, well, when are you going to come back? And I said, here's the deal. Gail saved my life. She came to me, she called me up. She saw that I had been injured, and she said, do you need help grooming? And I said, absolutely. And she came and she literally saved my life. Like, I don't know what I would have done had she not called me, because I couldn't groom. So, and I tell them, I'm like, I can't take business away from Gail. As long as Gail wants to work with me, she will have a job. And I'm not going to take money out of her pocket just so, I can come groom your dogs. Now, if she's out of town or she's sick or whatever, then I will definitely be filling in with her. I'd love to see you again, but I owe her, because she came to me when I needed somebody the most. So also keep good records. No means no. If it's a bad dog and you've written it on the card, there is no going back. It is no. And some people, you're going to have to draw a line in the sand, and sometimes you're going to have to draw that line even deeper. Okay. But stand your ground. Remember, this is for you. It's for your time. It's for your sanity. Dig in and stick to your gun, so to speak, because you're worth it. The other thing is, I don't like to give someone an appointment the day that they call or immediately. I like to have them wait, because what's the saying? Start as you intend to go on. It is very rare that there is an opening in my books on that day. So letting them wait until it's a real convenient time for you. It encourages people to pre-book, so they get their dogs groomed on their schedule, not necessarily on mine. Body language. We have to stand up. I took a class once in being assertive, and standing with your feet shoulder width apart and crossing your arms is a good posture if somebody's starting to push back. And just being patient. The other thing with that is to not get baited into a heated disagreement, but keep your cool and just keep stating your policies or why you said no, if you gave them a reason that you said no. Okay. Are you a procrastinator? Do you get distracted when things don't feel your true purpose because you have a hard time saying no to others? You probably have a hard time saying no to yourself. I'll just have that second cookie. Or maybe you decide to go out and play when you should be working. Or do you delay the dog till the end of the day, the bad dog that you really don't want to do because you'd rather do the fun dogs first? Me, I'd rather do the hard dogs first and the fun dogs later. Again, you are the boss of you. Communication is key. Take control of your business and your life by saying no and setting boundaries. I hope this helps you to share your opinion without feeling paralyzed, to speak up and to be heard and respected, to say no to the things that you don't want to do and yes to the things that you do, and not worry about offending others, to communicate clearly and confidently no matter what. respect for yourself. When I got divorced, everybody told me, you need to forgive him. You need to forgive him. And the big scheme of thing was, I was like, no, I need to forgive myself because I allowed this to happen. Okay. So sometimes we have to look in the mirror really hard. And we have to forgive ourselves for maybe letting somebody walk on us. But that's okay. You can change that by setting these boundaries. You can do it. Difficult, yes. Impossible, no. Invest in yourself because you're worth it. Thank you guys for letting me be on here. I appreciate it. If you guys want more training, I have a website, judyhudsongrooming.com. I also have a Facebook page, Groomed for Success, where I share tips and advice and personal development stuff all the time. So join me there. I would love to meet you. If you are on here and we're not friends, please feel free to introduce yourself. I will be next at, actually I'm going to Scotland and speaking next month, but then I'll be at the Owensboro show. There's a new little show in Owensboro, Kentucky coming up. I will be there, and then I will be at Pet Quest and Super Zoo in Houston that I know of right now.
Amazing. And Judy, thank you so much for coming on and giving this presentation. I know you gave something similar in Atlanta at Groomed, and so we're super blessed to have you here to pass that word forward. There were several questions that came into me while you were presenting, and I know we're already kind of running late on time, but if you have time to answer one or two of these, I would love to ask
I got
away.
time.
Cool. All right. Let's just do one or two of these. One that I thought was interesting was a couple of people asked how many clients you've had to fire over your tenure here. I don't know if you can put a number on that or not, but
Maybe 10.
okay. Was there a common reason between all 10, or were they all just different?
I don't do high maintenance. Like, and a lot of pet people can be over the top. And I had a lady that she actually had her housekeeper come out to the truck and watch me groom because she was afraid that I was mistreating her dogs. And so the way I handled that was, I was like, yeah, she can come out. And as soon as she got in the truck and I had the dog on the table, I turned around, looked at her, and I said, you are to stand in that corner. You are to not make eye contact with the dog. You are not to reach for the dog, and you are not to talk to the dog. You can have a conversation with me. But if you do any of those things, you put him and me in danger. I have sharp instruments, and he needs to be paying attention to me. Are we clear? And she's like, yes. And then she quit using me for a while. And then she called her friend that I knew and asked if I would come back because she would pay anything if I would come back and do her dogs. And again, I set my boundaries. I said, I will come back and these are my conditions. You are to meet me at the door with both dogs on a leash. And I don't want to see the whites of your eyes until I'm done. If you need to communicate with me, you can send me a text. And I did her dogs for another couple of years after that at a higher price. And I would have went back to the regular price, but she never said anything about it, so I didn't either. But, I let her go. I'm like, it just because what she wanted was for me to listen to her go on in this ridiculous voice about, oh, Sammy, is he not like that? And I'm like, that makes my head spin off. I just can't do it. So let her go. Let Miss Joyce go. I don't remember. Those were the two that stand out most.
That's
in my
so
mind.
funny. No, I
But
like that though. I mean, and it's funny. It's like that was a client that was paying you extremely well. And, in your head, you had that under control, but at some point enough's enough. And, kind of the tune of the talk, it's like, hey, your boundaries, you drew a line in the sand and you called it there. This was super informative to all of the strategies that you have in place.
Yeah. And I think that it's hard for us. I think we're afraid we're going to offend somebody if we set our boundaries and we're very clear about that. But it's been my experience that when I'm upfront with somebody and I tell them what the expectations are, then it's everything is smooth sailing after that. It might be a little uncomfortable, but
it always is. But hey, you're not growing if you're not a little bit uncomfortable, right?
that is very true.
Well, cool. Well, Judy, thank you so much again. If anyone has any other questions, or I know you guys sent me a whole bunch of questions, Judy is in the Facebook group. And so feel free to add her there. And Judy, we'd love to have you back at some point. This was amazing. Everyone go check out Judy's website as well. Once again, that's judyhudsongrooming.com. Keep in mind, next Monday, we'll be doing this again. We have Mario Quendo on teaching how to properly check in a pet for their safety and yours. Thanks again, guys. I'll post the recording in the Facebook group. And that should be all. Make sure you guys ping me if you guys need anything. Thanks again so much, Judy. You are the best, and we really appreciate you.
All right. Have a good day.